ladies. Thanks for introducing yourself and where you're from. I will say right now, ladies, that I assume I have good cell service, but if something goes wrong, then sorry. It seems to be working so far. So just thanks to Lindsay and Women Who Explore for doing this again. We had quite a good group in the winter, and we're back, and we just thought we'd hit this before summer. I think it's really important, obviously, from my perspective, to check our first aid kits. And I think sometimes we just get ideas from the conversations we can have about them. My name is Rebecca. I own Back40 Wilderness First Aid Training out here in Saskatchewan. And we're just this little growing community of, I guess, first aid providers that most of our courses are outdoors. And I'm at a perfect setup right now this weekend, and the weather's been good this year. And it just sort of blends my recreational life and my family life with my business. So I'd like to think I have some good advice for you. And I also love it when you guys, any comments or questions or anything like that, make sure you put that into the chat, and I'll try to address them. I am certainly not, the only expert. So I think a lot of people oftentimes will have good pieces of advice that we can all benefit from. And any really good ones, I'll just steal for myself and say that they were mine. So thank you. I was listening to podcast after podcast on the way up here about people's misfortunes, and I don't listen to them, for the example that they can give, but more so what can I learn from other people's misfortunes. And there are so many stories and podcasts and other relative stories that I've had from other people that there's oftentimes a comment, we didn't bring our first aid kit, or we didn't bring our pack with us, or whatever. And so from my perspective, I look at my first aid kit and my entire pack as a tool I can't go without anymore. Because if I have to deal with something, I trust my ability to improvise, but I know what kind of stress that puts me under. And so I honestly believe that you don't pack a first aid kit for the day that you don't need it. You pack it for the day that you do need it. And that's something that we need to think about. And if you get to come home and don't need to use it, well, then lucky you. But that is not a reason to leave that thing behind. And that's something I believe you need to think about. I have a lot of first aid kits, and they're in various stages of disarray and things like that. So I just thought I'd let you know that there is no perfect first aid kit out there. They all need work, and they all, need to be enhanced or changed. And there should be different kits for different things you do. What I have for my personal kit might be different than what I have for a leadership kit. So if I'm in a leadership role, then obviously I'm going to have something different. And I have a lot of kits, but it's funny because people say I probably have more kits than jackets, and I don't believe that to be true. Legit, this is a student's kit of mine. Last fall, a student brought his kit. He was like, I want to show you it. Can we talk about my stuff? And I was like, no, we can't talk about it because it's all garbage. It stunk. And all he said to me was, I never check it. And I'm like, well, I can tell. So I really believe that, even if out of tonight, ladies, that you go and you check your kits and you walk away and, try to fix something, or at least know that you trust what's in it, so that you're ready to go for your next trip. And I think you should do that probably with every change of season, and probably every activity too, if you do change, just in case. I have to tread cautiously here, because commercially there are first aid kits and there are brands out there that have, a pretty good base. But I'm pretty vocal in the fact that there is no commercially available first aid kit that I have bought. And I've spent everything from, $35 all the way up to $300 for my trauma kit. And not a single one of them was perfect as a standalone, bought it right off the shelf. So I believe that even though we go and we buy something and we spend our budget on something, is that we really have to look at the contents, and we have to understand that first aid kit providers will put in the most amount of stuff that costs them the least amount of money. So it's very easy to put in lots more swabs and lots more Band-Aids and put lower quality tools in there and be able to charge the consumer more money for that. And that's why I think every kit that you buy, you need to enhance at some point. Like I said, you need to make your kit your own. Just because there's a list and you know, either provider or my list or anywhere else that you can find a list and examples, you need to make it what is relevant to you and your personal needs and your trip needs. And that's why I think that the bags that we buy oftentimes are vessels that we can then change the contents to match what we need. So it's kind of hard, right, to tell you exactly what I think you should have in every single first aid kit. But you know, I want you to think about a couple things. So there should be the small things, and I believe that that's like the Band-Aid box. Okay. The small things for blisters and band-aids and small wound coverings that we probably deal with the most. In fact, maybe that should be separate. And then I think we should have something that manages the big things. And I don't think there's been a backcountry emergency that included fractures that the group had enough stuff. So fractures and severe bleeding are probably one of the two main things that will cost you the most amount of stuff. So if the things in your first aid kit cannot handle or contribute to that, then you're probably lacking. And then I think there's always the other stuff, the things that can extend your stay. If I go on a 5-day canoe trip, I'm probably going to pack a bit more stuff that if we do get small wounds, that I can change the dressings a couple of times. You know, I put in maybe a bit more medications. I put in things like Body Glide just as a preventative measure. So, you know, this will change as my trip and my duration times will change as well. So the small things, okay? This is just a list, and really what we can do afterwards with Lindsay, maybe your help, is we can just email the PDF that I have, and it's just a first aid kit packing list, and it has a couple of those like 10 essentials that you can see all over the internet, so that you can have like a one list resource. And again, it's 1 in a million out there, okay? I know people that have had their trips ruined because of blisters. And I'm sure there's some of you ladies that have had that too. So, you know, having those Band-Aids, the moleskin, that kind of stuff. I'm big right now. I know that there's been some link to Bliss Wool, and I carry some of her wool with me now in my kits. So I think that's a great resource to have. Alcohol swabs, basically to clean your sweaty skin, not to clean the wounds, to clean your skin so that the Band-Aids and the dressings will actually stick to it. You'd be amazed at what like a couple Q-tips will do for you. I believe in polysporin because it does a lot. We are using it on burns a lot more. It's that preventative infection control. It keeps wounds moist. It's pretty reliable for most people. Some people are allergic to it. Non-stick gauze pads. So when you see gauze pad packaging, some of them will just say sterile gauze pads, and other ones will say non-adherent or non-stick. So I can tell you, if you skin your knee, or if you have a blister, or if you have a burn, you are not going to want to put regular gauze on it. So I would be inclined to carry more non-stick gauze pads than I would be inclined to carry regular ones, because the non-sticks can be used for both. Depending on where you are, you can find things. There's so many new products out there. Second Skin is good for burns. You can get burn gel and burn gel packages. You can get different sizes of gauze roll. Like, all these things are just the little stuff. But again, how much of each thing you carry is sort of up to you and the size that you're willing to pack. So I'd say, like, oftentimes find a medical supply store that's not just a Walmart pharmacy, and ask the pharmacist. Or home healthcare stores oftentimes have these where you can buy, you know, 1 or 2 of the items instead of a full box. And that's a really good place to start. Now the big things, this is where more of my interest comes in and where my passion comes in. It's like, I really don't care how many Band-Aids you pack, but I firmly believe that our kits are not good enough to deal with those fractures and severe bleeding. So for me, the big things that you'll see and hear are like combine pads or ABD pads. So what that means is they're thicker. They're oftentimes like, you know, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but they're a lot bigger. They're a lot thicker. It's kind of like the overnight maxi pad concept. But they're sterile, right? And we could have that conversation around using maxi pads, but there's a time and a place for that. So those abdominal pads come in different sizes, and they will help you seal off things that are bigger. Gauze rolls. I cannot say enough about being able to use gauze rolls and potentially have to conserve them. So not using a whole roll and cutting it in half so that you can manage a wound for a longer duration. Tensor bandages. I was asked one time, by someone, you know, what a tensor bandage was. And I think we all know them to be those brown stretchy things we put on ankles, if you're not familiar. But a tensor bandage helps you to get extra pressure on something. It also helps to secure a splint in its final stage. Like, a tensor bandage is multi-purpose. You can wash it, you can hang it to dry. Like, it is definitely a multi-purpose tool. And I now feel like very lost without one in my kit. We've probably all heard of the emergency silver blankets. They're okay, but they are not strong. So one little snag and they're going to rip and tear, and they are loud as hell. It's like taking tin foil and crinkling it into your ear continuously. So there's a time and a place for them, but they're easy to pack and they're small. The other thing is that in the backcountry, we have all our multi-tools, different knives, things like that. There is nothing worse than trying to cut a pair of hiking pants or ski pants with a small little Leatherman blade. Like, I believe that your first aid kits need to have a good pair of scissors, because nobody wants you hacking at their clothing with a small little knife. And everybody thinks that it'll work just fine. And then I see them do it in class and they're terrible at it. So get yourself a good pair of scissors that will help you cut clothing when you need it and not be so threatening. A cat tourniquet. So it's really hard to like tell you about that. I'll have to grab it in a second. So a cat tourniquet, I'll grab it now. A cat tourniquet is something that you've got to take some training on. You can't just have a tourniquet and not know what to do with it. Every time somebody ties something on tight, they think they're doing a tourniquet, but they're not. So for those of you who have taken first aid or taken any advanced first aid, a tourniquet is a device that helps you to stop the bleeding on a limb if used properly. So I want the device. I don't want to have to make one. And it is tighter than a tight knot. So it is an absolute tool to stop bleeding. And so you think about bear attacks or fractures where the bone has come out of the skin and it won't stop bleeding. These things help me to do that immediately. Okay. There's lots of information online. If you're curious about it, you can email me afterwards. But I will not go anywhere without one of these now. And I have probably several in my car, and I never go without one or two, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm looking at a leadership kit, I probably will have just more of that stuff. I will actually pack an actual splint. I might have vet wraps, so people who have dogs and animals, it's kind of like a tensor bandage, but it doesn't stick to hair. It's a little bit more waterproof, so I might take something like that. And then I just have more stuff, because most people, when I'm in a leadership role, don't bring a first aid kit. So having more stuff is what they don't bring to the table. Now, it's a long list, and I'm not going to spend all time on this, but there's always the other comforts. And this is probably where we need more stuff in our first aid kits. It's just the things that make the small things more manageable. So some of us, like especially ladies, like between, our thighs rubbing together and backpack straps, like some sort of body glide or shaving cream, like go to a running room. I mean, that's preventative. Nail clippers, one broken toenail or fingernail, and you're going to wish you had a pair of nail clippers, and they are not hard to put in a first aid kit. And certainly better than pulling out a knife blade off a Leatherman. I personally have to pack electrolyte tablets or some gels in my kit because I'm chronically dehydrated. So at the end of the day, I oftentimes have to supplement and do it very quickly. So I find that for me, noon tablets are what I choose to pack for electrolytes. I recreation a lot with someone who's diabetic. So I pack some Dex glucose gel in the event that he actually needs more help than he can provide himself. A hair elastic. You'd be surprised at how many times I lost one or broke one, and I'm doing something and all I want to do is put my hair in a ponytail. Do you know how hard it is to do CPR with hair not in a ponytail? Okay, so just put a ponytail in your first aid kit. It's like your backup. A friend of mine had to deal with a broken jaw in a mountain biking accident. And so a stainless steel straw, especially in wilderness environments where you're not going to get out for a while. Not that I want them to drink a lot, but in order to get a little bit of fluid in their mouth, a stainless steel straw might be just something that you can use. And to be honest with you, it can splint a finger. So it's a kind of a multi-purpose tool. Plus, people who get sick, like gastrointestinal stuff, they don't want to drink. It's kind of like, I remember my mom anytime she put a straw in something, it just seemed easier to drink. So that also might be something that might help someone if they're needing to replace fluids but don't feel like drinking. Then there's just a list of like medications, and everybody, you got to look at that specifically for yourself. Is that there's some pretty common medications that people go with, Tylenol, ibuprofen, aspirin, Benadryl. There's some of mine are absolutes. I will always take Tylenol and ibuprofen because the ability to manage a headache, or the ability to take away some pain or lessen the pain when you have an injury, even just a sprained ankle, means that you're probably more resilient. I also don't go anywhere in the backcountry without Benadryl, or some sort of variety of an antihistamine, because I've had so many students and my own children react to nature, that it has saved a lot of situations where we've been able to reduce the stress that that person's been under. Longer trips, I'll go into things like Gravol and Imodium. And my husband, now that he's getting older, might need some muscle relaxants. So I've kind of added that to my little, pile of stuff I might put a couple tablets into my kit for. So what it comes down to here for myself is my absolutes. And I'm going to give you an example of this. So I am a mountain biker and I love getting on my bike and just going for a quick rip. I don't want to always pack this big backpack every time I go to my local trails. But on the seat pouch on my bike, there is a first aid kit supply. I have 2 triangles, 1 gauze roll, 1 tensor, 2 abdominal pads, and 2 nonstick pads. There's at least 1 silver blanket, and I've now added a small dollar store plastic poncho to that. There's a couple Band-Aids and 2 Benadryl tablets. So without question, those are for me something I don't ever want to be without. So every first aid kit will always have those and nothing less than that, but they will usually have more. But my bike seat pouch is the best example I have of something that is a small little container that contains these absolutes, and I can deal with anything. I can make a tourniquet out of a triangle. I can sling your arm. I can deal with a fractured arm. I can deal with severe bleeding. I can deal with a chest wound. Like, I can deal with a head wound. Like, there's so many things I can treat for shock. So in one small pouch with these multi-purpose tools, I can get you out, or I can stabilize you till help gets to you. Anything more than that, and we've got a really bad situation. Anything less than that, and you probably didn't need it anyway. So this is why I always sort of push and promote these items. Triangles. Does everybody know what I'm talking about with a triangle? Little triangular bandage. People always call them a sling. Like it's the only damn thing they do. It is not. I'm surprised actually I had this much paracord trip this week, because usually I don't. And I've even had to tie up a tent guy line with a triangular bandage because I had nothing left. Okay. Triangles keep your clothes on. If you do not have a first aid kit that has a couple of those things and you have severe bleeding or have to deal with a fracture, you are most likely going to be using clothing. And the whole, I'll use my shirt. I'm sorry, but as a first responder, we don't show up to car accidents with a bunch of people with their shirts off. So in my opinion, a triangular bandage is a very small piece of cloth material that you can pack that will help you keep your clothes on. And in a backcountry situation, that's the last thing you want to start doing is using clothing, because usually even the extra you have is for your weather management. So if I have triangles and somebody else has triangles, we don't have to use our clothing until things get even worse. Another tip I have is that there's no excuse in my world. If you're coming on a trip with me, there is no excuse that you do not have a first aid kit. I don't go in my social recreational life with people who don't carry their own. Okay. And a lot of people do that where they'll say, oh, well, I'm going with Sarah and Sarah always has a first aid kit. So what do I need one for? Because mine plus yours is more. And my husband and I have had this conversation because he thinks that I should just carry a bigger one and then he doesn't need one. Well, what if we get separated? Or what if we have to deal with something and he has to leave to go get help and I have to stay? There's no excuse not to have your own first aid kit. And I really think that if you're going to be going with people, that you should challenge everybody to learn to how to contribute and to be self-sufficient. Um, I mean, without getting into a first aid course here, there are two things that you cannot replace in the backcountry. Okay. The first thing is blood. And that is why in most of my courses, I'm very focused on bleeding management and stopping the bleeding sooner than later. And that's why tourniquets for me are now a standard tool in my first aid kit. You can't replace it, and you can't measure how much someone has lost. So if they've lost enough blood to be going into shock, you're already in a dangerous place. The other thing is warmth, is that even if it's a nice day, if someone's going into shock and the temperature starts to drop, their body cannot control their body temperature the way that it used to. So everything about what I pack is it's not just for my personal comfort. It's for the fact that if something does go south, is that I can do my best to prevent it. And these are the two things that I worry about the most, is blood and warmth. So I talked about the cat tourniquet. There's many tourniquets on the market. You can go to Amazon and probably find one for $15, but it will be a cheap knockoff straight from China kind of device. It is not patented. It is not tested. It is not held to any mechanical standards. So if you could do a Google research on it. Okay. The Tactical Operations Center has a list of approved tourniquets. And most of them are more medically designed for like paramedics and military medics and things like that. But there's about 2 or 3 that are civilians, are very inclined to use, and they're very successful with them. CAT stands for Combat Applied Tourniquet, and it's probably the most common. Another one would be a SAM, SAM. It's a brand. It's very similar to the CAT. And another one would be, it's called a soft T, SOF, and then T for tourniquet. If you are getting cheap ones off Amazon, or if you are getting ones that are not one of those 3 brands, I would suggest that, you know what, they might work, but you are buying a life-saving device from the dollar store. So do some research before you just go find cheap ones, because the difference is like $10 or $15. And I think for certain things and certain gear, you're better off to invest in something that has more proven reliability. But again, Google it, because there's so much online that can tell you what I'm telling you, right? I feel like I live in a doomsday. Like, don't go outside, ladies. Just stay home. Like, you literally, like, it's dangerous out here. Like, it could rain. You could roll your ankle. You could get bit by a bug. Oh my God, ticks. Don't even get me started on ticks. We go outside because there is a certain amount of risk. Like, that's the beauty of this. Or I try to manage the risk. I want to return so I can go again. But every single person that has the story in the backcountry didn't expect for that to happen that day. And that's why, from my business perspective, our slogan is no one plans to get hurt, because we don't plan to roll that ankle. We don't plan to slide down a hill. We don't realize how quickly the weather can change. And the thing is that, truthfully, statistically, from all search and rescue groups across Canada and the US, the day hiker is the least prepared. So I would suspect that all of us, including myself, are guilty of those days where I went with very little and I just got lucky. So I made it my mission to stop doing that, because the day that I do that and something else happens, I knew better. And so I challenge you to reconsider your mindset when you go into the backcountry. And if you go and you pack more than you think you should have, you must have had a good day if you didn't need to use it. Yeah, I just said this again. I was just trying to put tips together for you guys. I even started telling men to put a ponytail in the first aid kit, because this is an elastic. This is not just for hair. Okay. And if you got short hair, you can help a girl like me that has long hair that just broke her last ponytail, right? Or you can tie up a bandage with it, or you can secure something with it. Like, just, I've needed a ponytail so many damn times that now it's just like, I make sure there's extra. Okay. It's just a tip. This was before COVID. I kind of put this all together before COVID. And then I realized that regardless of your opinions on COVID, guys, it's not going away. And here's what I know. I have not had a cold or the flu or anything in a very freaking long time. So I'm going to leave my medical mask in my first aid kit. It's just a spare. Because if I come across some situation that's not mine, they're not my people, I don't know who they are, I will get right up in their face if I have to help them. But maybe it might be nice for them to put a mask on. I don't know who they are. You know, maybe there's a time where I want someone else that I'm taking care of to put a mask on. My husband's a paramedic. They still put masks on their patients. So it cost me no room in my first aid kit to put an extra spare one in there just in case. And you know what? It's kind of nice now. I don't have to see people's like teeth, smell their bad breath or whatever, right? So like it costs you nothing to leave it in a kit just because we think COVID's almost over. I don't want another cold or the flu or the cooties. Okay. Or don't. Who you are, but if you are a leader, okay, you probably know this already, but having a bit extra in a kit is really important. And I think you have to look at that. I believe that anybody in a leadership role is doing customer service. And if you are unprepared or do not have things or do not have the confidence to deal with it, especially a physical or medical emergency, your clients or your participants are going to start to doubt you. So having a kit that you rely on and having a kit that you can trust is probably a good customer service thing. And it proves your competency, which is probably something that will help you in the long run if it goes to any legal or liability thing. Band-aids. I kind of said this before. Put your band-aids separately. Like nobody wants to get into their first aid kit because it usually explodes. So like if you're a person that uses band-aids a lot or blister stuff, just put them in a little baggie or some sort of thing separate. And that way you don't always have to get into your big first aid kit. For me, oftentimes if I got to get into the big first aid kit, you hurt yourself. Okay. Otherwise, it's probably not that bad. And I love having the band-aid separate. It's also why I tell you, like, if you have children, build them their own first aid kit. There's no reason why my kids started having their own stuff when they were about 4. And I would put band-aids for sure, the fun ones because it's better for them. And I put one triangle and a little gauze roll and a silver blanket, and they always had their own little bits. And it was also a way for me to distribute the load of carrying extra for having extra people along. So there's no reason why our kids can't carry some small stuff either. And it makes them feel important. Let them play with some stuff. If they don't play with it, then they don't know what the hell to do with it. So buy your kid a little bit extra and let them play with it. It's amazing what they can learn. Um, this one really stands true to me because we talk about first aid kits, ladies, but your first aid kit is just a toolbox. It's a small bag in what should be your whole pack. And if you think about it, your entire pack is your first aid kit. When I look at this picture, that girl's pack cover can be something I can put underneath your butt to keep it from getting wet on the ground. That pack cover can stuff the dead spaces between your leg and a splint. That pack cover can protect a wound that you have on your leg that I put a bandage on. So those hiking poles now become splints. Her gaiters, I can use that to make, actually I can roll some sticks in that and make a splint out of them. Everything that you take with you is a part of your first aid kit, but the kit itself is just a small little toolbox where you keep select items. So you have to start looking at your whole pack as a bigger picture to contributing to your backcountry emergency. Okay, I'm not 20 anymore. So I get there faster. I get uncomfortable faster. And every once in a while I get that little tweak in my back where I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel right anymore. So these little gems, this is just a tip I have for you. These little gems are another thing I add to my kit because they're small, they're lightweight, they're easily packed, they're cheap, and I can tie them around your belly. I can tie them around your chest. They're not like trying to stick two hot hands that you hold in your hand, try and put it underneath your armpit. That's ridiculous. If you are wet and cold, I can put this on underneath your sweaters. If your back hurts, I can give you this. Like it's just such a cheap investment and it's worked so many times that now I have it in my pack year round. So I just thought it would be a tip to share with you guys. I added this one. This one's new. So I was trying to think about what other tips I could give you ladies. Lately, because the trees are out and everything's in bloom and stuff like that, I've been doing a lot of scenarios in our wilderness courses on impalements or, you know, impalements that have been removed because the person got off of them. There's a lot of pruning going on trails, especially in provincial and regional parks. And there's a lot of little death traps out there. And so if you do anything that goes fast, like mountain biking or um, even downhill stuff where you've got a little bit of speed, if you fall and tumble and get impaled, the last thing you want to do is be stuck on a tree and not have a means to cut yourself off of it. So I'm very shocked at how many people go into forested and wooded areas and don't have a saw. And I'm not talking a little blade off a Leatherman. That ain't going to help you if you have to do bigger stuff. It has its merits, but I'm going to say if you play in the trees, ladies, you got to get yourself a good saw, something that will actually cut something or help you build a shelter or be more reliable. And it's probably the one item I see a lot of people don't have. And when they tell me they don't have one and they ask to use mine, I'm like, no, they have to show me how they're going to figure out how to cut something when they don't have the tool that they needed. And it would certainly be harder on the patient if you had to do that, if you had to hack away at something with a small little straight blade. So consider that maybe as a tool you might want to add to your first aid kit and your whole pack. Okay, done. So last time we did this, I didn't leave a lot of time for conversation, and I wanted to leave a bit more of time for conversation tonight for you ladies. So I kind of want to hear from you, like, you know, even in the comments, or if you want to unmute, like, how many of you, do you pack a tourniquet? Do you have triangles in your first aid kit? What questions do you have? Oh, Lindsay says you never mentioned gloves. I'll show you. I have one pair of gloves in my first aid kit. I'll tell you why. I don't even know where they are. It's weird. So my husband is a paramedic that will not get out. Well, he's a firefighter, but they don't get out of the fire truck without their PPE on. But when we're in the backcountry, we tend not to have all that stuff because we typically are dealing with our own people, whether it's ourselves or our children or our friends. So I have like 1 or 2 pairs of gloves that are probably spread throughout my kit and another piece in my my hygiene kit. I believe that if I have to do something that gets right up in things, that I will put my gloves on. But I suspect for the most part, if you guys had a backcountry emergency, the first thing you're not going to do is probably put your gloves on unless this is a stranger for you. So I think you should pack for that. And they're not hard to pack, a couple. Oh, there they are. I got one little pair. I probably won't use it for myself unless I got to get right into a wound or something. And so that's why I don't pack a whole bunch of them personally. Sanitizer, got lots of sanitizer. Lisa's got one triangle. Oh, Sue. Sue. So Sue's comment, I wonder how to pack my kit. I have the items. I just don't know what to use to pack it efficiently. Me neither. Like here, I'm going to show you. Like, okay, so I got this like packing cube from Mech because it was like kind of the size I wanted, but it like explodes. Like I got everything kind of in Ziploc bags. And I just like, you know what, let the shit show begin. You know, like if I need to get in there, it's just, I'm going to dump it all on the ground. Adventure Medics, I forgot it actually. I was going to show you. So Adventure Medics has there's a blue first aid kit from Adventure Medics. Now I'm telling you straight off the shelf, you need to supplement it. But it opens like a book, and then it has one more piece that folds out, and it's a lot more compartmentalized. So it's kind of like, yeah, it opens like a book. Yeah, kind of like that one. They've got, that looks like an older version, Amanda. Thank you. And so they're always changing their stuff right now. But that one I found is at least a bit easier to open up. That one is my leadership one. And I like that. Mac also has an empty red first aid bag. And it has compartments in it as well, and you can see through them, so that's actually good. It's about a $20 price point, and then you can stuff it in there. And then Sea to Summit, if you guys paddle, Sea to Summit has a specific dry bag that's red, and it has a green cross on it and a clear window that says first aid kit. So I actually like that one for my paddling gear. That way I can say to someone, go into the barrel, get the red bag, and they'll be able to find it specifically for the first aid stuff. I find like Ziploc bagging things in common groups is probably the easiest way to do things. Christina says, I have everything except the triangle, tourniquet, and saw. Christina, I don't give two shits if my friends think I'm going overboard. Like, seriously, when they fall down and are whining and complaining that they hurt themselves and they turn to you and you're like, you're not going to get my triangle then. Right? Like, listen, triangles, okay? These two triangles, two of them, that's how big they are. Okay? They're not, it's not like packing like a down duvet. Okay? Like, here's the thing. And that's why, like, listen, this weekend I taught a bunch of mountain bikers who didn't carry anything. Okay? I've got them convinced to carry two triangles and a tensor bandage. And some of them might get a tourniquet. But that's a win because you can do a lot with those small things, right? So, you know, when I look at my little Mex bag, it's full, but it's still only like the size of my hand. It's not that big. So don't ever apologize for being a bit more prepared. Because when you need it, you're not going to be embarrassed then. And you know what? I always say to them, listen, I'll carry what I need to and I'll share when I need to. But you know what? You won't notice the difference if you have, you know, two triangles. And a tourniquet, maybe you don't get it, maybe you do. But after you get a little bit of training on them, it's kind of hard not to have them after you know what they do. And so it's just like another tool in the bag. Next time you tell them that you're not going to share them.
I have a couple questions.
Please.
So with the tensor bandage, you said you can wash it. Does it like, how long does it last after washing? Is it something that you wash a few times and then it kind of loses the tension?
I haven't found that before COVID, from a training perspective, before COVID, I was using tensor bandages until they frayed and got like embarrassingly disgusting to like put out to the public. So they would fray on the end a little bit. Sometimes they get like, depending what you do to them, you might get a little bit of a bubble in them or something. But you know what? They last quite a few times. And I mean, if you go to Walmart, they're like $3 or $4, sometimes more because they just jack up their prices. But from medical supply store, they're like $1.50. Like,
Okay.
you know, so I buy a couple, and if it starts to get frayed a lot, then I just replace it. I feel like you'll get a lot of uses out of them. Some of the what is it? Not 3M. I can't remember the brand. Sometimes the brands matter. Sometimes I do find if you pay a little bit more, they do last. My husband's been wrapping his ankle multiple times just from a work-related injury, and he's been rewrapping with the same tensor for, I'd say, 2 weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, it's reusable. And I used to throw the training ones right in the like wash and dryer.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to wash them. I mean, I didn't really think about that because I always thought it would kind of lose its elastic use, but that makes sense. So this is, I probably already know the answer to this, but like, I'm assuming when you go out with people, this was something I was taught in my woofer classes, like you should always ask people if they have a first aid kit and where they keep it. Is that like a recommendation?
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean,
I think so. Like, I think probably most of us are really complacent when we go with people we know, right? Like, I go for a hike with my girlfriend in Waterton, and I know she's probably got more stuff than I do. I also didn't ask her where it was, but like, I don't care if I have to dump her bag.
right.
And so if you're going, especially some of you who are doing these like meet and greets where you're going with people you've never met and you're meeting up at trailheads and going for a walk, it is really good to say like, okay, hey ladies, like who's got a first aid kit? You know, where do you keep it in your bag? Bottom, top? Is it in a red bag? Like whatever, just so you know. If you really are doing something that's maybe more dangerous, why not get a couple people to lay them out on the table? Oh, I have a first aid kit. Oh, sorry, it's just band-aids. Well, great. Right? So, and here's the thing. In an emergency, all packs are usable. So I do not apologize one bit for going to get someone's bag and like dump it and get what I need. Like in an emergency, you have to understand that we all contribute. So if everybody had good packs, and you probably are also not just, I'm not looking at just the first aid kit.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to know who has stuff, right? Usable stuff is what I think is a good conversation to have at a trailhead for sure.
that was the best like information I got out of my woofer class, was like the idea. I never thought like your entire pack was something you would use for first aid. And so like that was like one of the best things I probably learned. And like it made me really start thinking about not just like you were saying, what's in my first aid kit, but what other things do I have in my pack that are going to be useful, like your wilderness survival stuff in case you have to spend the night, like fire starter and all that
Yep.
stuff. Dehydration tablets or a water filter of some sort. Cause I mean, I'm guilty of not carrying a ton of water because I don't drink a lot when I'm hiking, but it's always nice to have the filter. I actually just went on a hike for like 2 miles this weekend and it was like 90 degrees out and I had my water filter in and we all ran out of water and we filtered water out of the river because it was so
Yep.
hot and I didn't expect it to be that hot. So there's so many things that like you are important that you wouldn't necessarily think of as part of your first aid kit, which I thought was really cool.
Actually, when you said that, Lindsay, about water filter, so one of the things I do, ladies, is I just, as a backup, I will put like, I'll buy aqua tabs and I put like a couple aqua tabs in a first aid kit. I forget about them, but if I need to clean a wound, I don't want to use my drinking water, but if I can put aqua tabs into like a water source and at least kind of clean the water a little bit, it's an easy way to pack it in your kit in like your whole pack without like, it's kind of like the backup, right? Oh, right. I have 2 aqua tabs in my first aid kit. So I always kind of have that. I have my water filter, but I have aqua tabs in the kit as well. And they just, as long as they're still in their package, so you don't think that they're an aspirin tablet or something, just don't confuse the two.
Speaking of like cleaning the wounds, the other thing I found really was a syringe. Do you use syringes? It's like to like pressure
I don't
out.
pack a syringe in my small kit. It's too big. To be honest with you, everything is packaged in a Ziploc bag. So one little hole in a Ziploc bag and there's your way to irrigate a wound.
Oh, maybe I'm not thinking of, well, yeah, like maybe I'm using the wrong word.
Yeah, well, a syringe, yeah, because in my bigger kit, I have a syringe.
Okay.
But I find the Ziploc bag works just as well. Like,
Oh yeah,
and so
I didn't think about that.
along those lines, I always, even in my kit right now, I can find one. There's an empty, clean Ziploc bag. It's never been used. It's folded up. It's just, maybe it contains, I can put garbage in it. I can bandage around a wound. I can clean a wound with it. It's just like a backup spare. And it's actually really nice to have along too. So what else is here? Sue says, yeah, hang the touches to dry. Does your bike kit fit in your seat pouch? Yeah, so Sue, my seat pouch is an Evoke, EVOC, whatever, Evoke. And it's their little bit bigger one and it fits all that stuff. So 2 triangles, a tensor bandage, a gauze roll, a silver blanket, a plastic poncho. I even have my multi-tools in there. I have a hot hand and a hot toe and whatever little bits of band-aids I can shove in, and it's packed solid. So it stays in my seat pouch, and I even have a drop seat, but it will rub a bit if I'm like really hitting the seat hard, but otherwise I can drop my seat and it doesn't rub my tire. And that way I can go for a rip and not have to think about packing it. So it's always on there. If I'm taking my backpack, I probably have still a second bag. Because I kind of forget that my seat pouch is my first aid kit. But I do on, really, intense trails and stuff, I will take a little bit more stuff for first aid supplies in my backpack. But just to rip around our city trails and stuff, I don't take a full backpack with me. And the last time I needed first aid supplies was when my kid fell off her bike on a gravel path on the way to the library. So I will tell you right now is that half the time the shit ain't even the bad stuff. It's this your whining kid who just ripped all the skin off her knee. So two nonstick pads and a gauze roll got her home, right? So sometimes if you can cover that shit up, they don't cry. They don't want to look at it, right? Yeah. So I was glad I had that stuff just for that day. Such a silly little thing, right? And she was in a lot of pain.
Well, it also kind of reminds me of like what you were saying about like the day hiker. I'm definitely guilty. Like when I started hiking, I would literally carry nothing with me, like a bottle of water sometimes. And then we had like a really huge wilderness fire out on this trail outside of Portland, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was like, oh, and like 100 people got stranded on the trail overnight. And most of them were just on the trail day swimming. And I was like, wow, I almost went on that trail today and I would have like
Yeah.
went on it and not carried much. And like that totally changed my whole perspective of like what to carry in a pack and just having like the 10 essentials
Yep.
and all of that. So
Yep.
yeah.
I was just looking through my kit. I'm like, what else is even in here? This is the thing. Sometimes my kits are that I don't even know what's in them. This is another one. So you know those like puppy pee pads? You know those, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm really proud that I left this in there actually. So you think about wilderness environments, right? Like here, I'm gonna pop your blister and bandage it up, but I have to do it over a log. If there's one way that I can create a cleaner space to work off of, this might be it, right? And it actually covers over a wound, like a larger wound. So if you rip off like all the skin on the side of your leg, look how big it is. So it's actually like a really good multi-purpose thing. And I don't care if it's not sterile, it's clean enough, right? So this is another thing I should have added in my tip list. I was just, like I said, I was just going through my kit and that's another thing that I found. So
How
the
how often do you go through your kit to check like expirations and stuff? And like when do triangles and stuff expire? Do they have expiration dates on them or do they not have expirations?
triangles don't, gauze doesn't usually. So anything in medicine will have an expiry date of some sort because they want you to like, especially in a hospital, it's a way to repurchase, right? But these triangles are made out of like cotton material. They're not going to expire, right? Keep them clean. That's what I look for mostly is, are they still clean? Is the package still good? I do check, like I will probably tell you right now, I haven't checked it in a while. I bet you half of my meds. So don't judge me, but like, this is my, like, see that? It's like my little pill party right there. It's like I got my Tylenol, my Benadryl, my Advil all together. Listen, this is my kit. So it's probably expired. Like really, if in my leadership kit, it's different. So in my leadership kit, each medicine that I pack has it is packaged with the original, or I'll cut the dosage and the expiry date off the packaging and put it into the little bag. So that way, if I'm giving it to anybody, that they would know what the expiry date is. Right now, if I had a headache, I'll take my own damn Tylenol, even if maybe it's expired, maybe it's not. My Aquatab say 2022, so I've got some time on that. So yeah, I probably don't check it as often as I should. And it's one place, especially in my leadership kit, that I do spend a bit more time on. But the rest of the stuff, like I don't look at like, gauze rolls and things like that as, even if it said expiry, it's still clean. It's not compromised. It's not dirty. So it's still going to work. Right. So, I think you could, even if you're really organized, you can make yourself a list when you make your kit about these are the expiry dates and these are the items. And that's why you don't have to always go in your kit. I mean, if you're ultra organized, which is not something that I am, I admire people who are.
I agree on that.
Another thing that I want to tell you, I promote triangles. I pack the pre-made, first aid kit ones. But I do want to tell you this, my disclosure on this is they're junk. Like they'll do their job. They will stop some bleeding. They will tie something up. They will be a sling. But homemade triangles made out of like cotton sheets are even better. And you can get 8 full size, like full arm span length triangles out of one queen size sheet. And the reason why I say that is that in one of my, I don't know where it is, but in one of my, like, I have a little bag for like extra socks and my toque and, mini mitts and stuff like that for the summer. In that bag, there is one like cotton triangle that I cut out of sheets, because in my training kit, I use just cotton ones because I'll wash them and repeat and wash and repeat. But if we use these ones, they start to kind of get crinkled up. So these aren't going to last to their fullest size on a multi-use like event. Like you aren't going to bring these home and wash them in a washing machine and be happy with what comes out of the dryer. You may be able to hang them to dry. You may be able to iron them. And so if you really are a multi-use person or, want to reuse things, one queen size flat sheet will get you 8 triangles, and you can put about 3 in a Ziploc bag. And if you have a food safer, it even compresses them even better. So you will be a little bit disappointed on the size of the triangles out of first aid kits, but they are small to pack. So it's a trade-off.
What are the dimensions that you cut yours to? Do you know?
No. I put my arms out full length and I should be able to touch one tip to the other tip.
Okay.
I think I actually have a video on my YouTube thing about how to do it. Basically, you keep folding the corners over on a queen size sheet and you can get yourself one. I should do another video on that.
Oh, that's cool. That's a great, I like that
Yeah,
tip.
you just fold the corners over until you have stacked up, like you get 8 triangles. If they're anything shorter than a full arm length, then you've gone too short.
Okay, that's good. Good tips. I like that.
And don't stencil them out because it's just a nightmare to try to cut them. Just fold the corners until you got like a stacked up, like folded triangle, and just start cutting seams. I might have tried that the first time and did it the hard way.
That's how I would have probably tried to do it. I like the folding idea. It's really good.
Well, and some people have even taken like old material that they have at home, like if you are a crafty person, and just cut something that's like arm's length and the shape of a triangle. There are some of you ladies would know this, like some scarves or baby receiving blankets, those muslin soft baby blankets that are square. If you fold them in half, they're now a triangle. So they're, and most of them are like an arm's length. It's just the reason why I say an arm's length for the triangle, like the long line of it, is that way it'll go around most people for a sling. Like it'll go around like my husband, who's a lot bigger than me. It's full size, right? And then it's a little bit more versatile for you.
Well, and it's probably more sturdy because I know aren't the ones in the package typically like a little stretchy?
Not really stretchy. They just start to fray. They're like a really cheap material. Ladies, check your first aid kits. If any of your triangles are made out of a white material that looks almost like gauze, they are terrible. Like I have ripped them in class. So if you have anything, the brown ones don't rip, but some of the white ones do. And what I've noticed is that adventure medics have been using cheaper products and they've been putting these white ones in. And when you tighten them and stretch them a bit more, they rip. So maybe check that. The Red Cross has some white ones, but they're literally cotton. So they're completely different. You can tell by the feel of them. So that's the other thing too, is that when you buy first aid kits, you got to kind of like, you don't want to buy a kit and spend like 40 to 80 bucks on something and then start unpackaging things to see what their quality is. And a lot of times I do, so I can show students like, listen, look at the quality of this, like lower your expectations, right? So I don't know, you got to get to know the stuff that's in these kits when you buy them. Sometimes it's worth it to buy a couple extra and play with them a bit too, but maybe that's just what I do because that's my world, right? Is to know these supplies. What else?
I just know I like the idea of personalizing your kit and just like almost think starting from, I don't want to say starting from scratch, but if you have a list to go off of, I do think starting from scratch is maybe you get more bang for your buck because
Yes.
even in those small little ones, like you get like 1 or 2 Band-Aids.
Absolutely. Sue just asked, how do you use moleskin? So moleskin, talk about blisters for a second. Moleskin is for when you've got hot spots developing where you can feel your shoes are rubbing and you're starting to feel like a blister is going to start to form. So what you do is the moleskin is like a soft, it basically allows your shoe to rub against it instead of your leg or your foot. So basically you cut whatever patch size you want off of it. And you remove the sticky stuff on the backside and the sticky stuff sticks on you. So you would even have to like use an alcohol swab and really clean around your skin so your body oil has been removed, and you stick this against your skin in a bigger patch than the hot spot that you're developing. And then that way the boot rubs on this and not on you, okay? There's other things out there now. People, I mean, I've even heard duct tape. Like people who get blisters a lot will use duct tape. And there's so many different blister remedies out there. Duoderm is another one. They're little patches. I know Johnson & Johnson has blister patches. Some of them stick, some of them don't. for me, this Duoderm, I put it on my kid's foot at Disney World and it stayed on for like 4 days straight. Didn't come off. So like that worked. But there's many, many different things out there. It's a matter of making sure that it sticks to your skin. Blissed wool, the newest stuff that I've kind of developed interest in, is a Canadian company, I think. And basically it's just raw wool. And so this is just a little package of it. Basically, instead of moleskin, you take the raw wool, and we all know how good wool is to like breathe and cushion. And you basically put that over your hot spot, and then it cushions your boot, your foot. And I haven't had to use it myself, but I'm hearing really good things about it from people who have. So Blisswool is a company to check out online. And they've got advice on how to apply it. So maybe that's something you want to look into. Amanda asked, what is your stance on ropes? Do you bring one with you? What one do you recommend? Well, I will tell you this. I'm going to show you my site because I'm here. I'm so proud of myself. So I don't go anywhere without a 8x10 tarp. So I have a lightweight tarp. If you're in Canada, Woods right now has a cheap tarp. It's $25. It's the size of an Nalgene water bottle, but it's an 8x10. And the center line rope that's across my tarp, I think I would like to say it's 25 feet, maybe. It's more robust rope. And then I just have 2 coils of paracord. I don't think that honestly you could have enough paracord. So little bundles of paracord that I've kept over the years, a full length of rope, and tent pegs. Like, do not forget tent pegs. It's amazing what tent pegs can do. And so that's kind of what I have as my rope bag. On a day trip, I wouldn't say that I take the full length of rope, but I always have paracord and I always have a small tarp no matter what. I will not do a day trip without a small tarp. It's part of my Stay Alive program. And so on the weekend when it was 35 degrees out and we were doing mountain bike injuries on trails, even though we were on the trail and it was shaded, the difference between the heat with the tarp up and a tarp not up was exponentially different. Like the tarp up made such a difference that I even convinced mountain bikers who go on local trails to start carrying a 5x7 tarp. It's better than nothing. And so I always have little bits of paracord no matter what size of tarp I have. But if I take the bigger one, then I have obviously a bigger rope length.
Is it like a lightweight tarp that you bring with you for day trips?
Yeah, so the one that's above me right now is a brand called AquaQuest. So it's a Canadian company, I think Canadian US, but they're based out of Toronto, I think. So AquaQuest has, and they're on Amazon, they have various sizes of tarps, and then their sill tarp. So anything that's called a sill tarp will be lighter weight, more compactable, but a little bit slippery material. Mountain Equipment Co-op in Canada has tarps. Their guide tarp is a sill tarp, and their scout tarp is a nylon tarp, and they're a pretty decent price point. Amazon actually has tarps. Like, I just think though that from a shelter perspective, an 8x10 tarp is exactly what I would take. Even bigger would be better, but it starts to get, the bigger they are, the more bulky they are. So an 8x10 is the minimum I will take on an extended day trip. And in my bike pack for like really short things or things where I don't anticipate we'll need, I either have a 5x7 lightweight nylon tarp, or I have an older one, but the brand you can find now, I think, is Sea to Summit, is a sill tarp poncho. So, I don't have it here to show you. Truthfully, what it fits into when it's brand new, it's like the size of my fist, like that big. That's about how big it is brand new. The problem with that, ladies, is that it's a price point of like $150. So it's like a 5x7 tarp, but it can be a poncho, which is awesome, but it's expensive, right? So to be honest with you, a brand new 5x7 cheap blue tarp at like some Canadian Tire will also fit at the bottom of your backpack underneath, like at the very bottom, and you'll probably won't even know it's there. So there's ways to find cheaper ones, but now that I've used them so often, it's kind of hard to like not go without. And that's why I tell people about the Woods brand right now in Canada, because at Canadian Tire you can get a Woods brand tarp for $24.99, and it, like I said, it's the size of a Nalgene water bottle. So you can hardly beat that price, and at least it has some grommets and some holes on it that you can put it up on the trees if you need to. So I like them, and they also help to drag people around when you have to move someone. You can turn it into a stretcher with a couple tree poles. Like, I cannot say enough about a tarp as being a part of your pack. Can you recommend a lightweight one? 8-day backcountry trip coming up. So Christina, so aquaquest.ca is this place where I would go, and aquaquest is on Amazon. That's the one that's overhead, and I like it that it's got lots of little guy line grommets on it, and it's super lightweight. Another brand would be, I would go, well, personally, I'm in Canada, so I would go Mountain Equipment Co-op would be my second one. They have either the Sil nylon ones or their Scout tarps, and they are probably in the $70 to $120 price range. AquaQuest is probably $80 to $120 depending on the size you go. And those would be the two sources I just off the top of my head. But you can find lots, and if you're wanting to go like a little bit cheaper, then you can try out Amazon too. I mean, as long as you got a size that you fit in your pack, but lightweight, AquaQuest or Mech would be where I'd go.
I have a couple more questions. So do you use cold packs at all? Do you pack cold packs, or do you just hot stuff?
No, I only put cold packs in my vehicle first aid kit, because that means I'm probably at some ball game where some of my children have taken a ball off the front of their forehead.
Yeah.
And I've needed ice packs before. But I'm not packing ice packs in that country. Like, you can suck it up, or here's some cold water.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is like there's always usually a cold river by, hopefully, well, depending where you are, I guess.
Yeah, and if there's not, then there's just not. And
I guess that's why you have like Tylenol or Advil or.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in
ibuprofen.
There's no reason why we can't give Tylenol or Advil to someone who's coherent and an adult and able to accept it if they should choose. Ibuprofen will help to reduce swelling if they can tolerate it, and Tylenol helps to reduce pain. So that might help. Also, resting and just putting their foot up or their arm up for a little bit may help with a little bit of the swelling. And sometimes your day just sucks. And the problem with those instant ice packs is they're cold for like 5 minutes and then they're done.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So good questions. So are you happy with your first aid kits? Like, are you motivated to like did you get some tips from tonight? What follow-up can we do for you? Because I think, Lindsay, we can probably send an email, right, for registration?
Yeah, if you want to send me like either a link to your website with the list, or if you just want to send me a PDF, I can hook everybody up with a PDF. And then I'll definitely email out a copy of a link to the video, or like so people can replay and kind of go through it and watch it on their own to but I will definitely, I know I need to spruce my kit up. So
I think it's funny, when I pull out even my leadership kit, if I would have had it here tonight, I probably would have had other like ideas, like floss, and what else was in there? Oh, I put a lighter in there and little cuticle scissors. Like, man, when you need them, you need them. Like, there's a million ideas of the little things we can add to kits, right? And I don't think you should ever apologize for having extra stuff. Keep it reasonable, but I want to trust my kit, and that way I'm not stressed out and having to, be frustrated with not having the things that I wish I had. So,
or trying to improvise with things that maybe won't do as good of a job.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm, like I said, I'm in Saskatoon. So I go to places like, we have a home healthcare store. So any medical supply or home health care store usually will have this stuff, and you can usually buy 1 or 2 items versus boxes. I bought some stuff on Amazon just because I was looking for bulk. I could buy some things at pharmacies, like, a longer tensor you might be able to find at a pharmacy. But just be cautious on, like, oftentimes, like, retail pharmacies oftentimes, like, have a lot higher prices, and maybe that doesn't matter, but, sometimes I find the actual supply stores don't have as expensive at prices because they're doing more with bulk. So yeah.
Cool. Any other final questions from you ladies, or?
It was great. It was very useful.
Thanks, Sue. It's good. And if you guys have questions, you can find, like, I'm on Back40's on Facebook, so Back40 training on Facebook or Instagram, just because we're kind of global, right? So if you're not in Canada, that's probably the best way to find us. I believe in Googling. Like, you need ideas. Like, I'm just one person, right? There's a million, half the ideas, like, there's a global resource for you. And I believe in, Google it, like, see what other ideas you come up with, something, especially when you're trying to solve a problem. When you're buying first aid kits, ladies, really look at the content list and look at what's not in there, and then supplement, right? It's not their job to provide you everything. Unfortunately, the more you spend, the more you'll get, but then maybe you're getting into a kit that's too big. So, start somewhere and seek out, advice if you need more, and just take it from there.
Besides Googling, do you have your favorite resources? Like, is there a podcast you like, or a YouTuber that you follow?
Well, for me, I follow, like, I do a lot of, like, podcasts around stories. So the Sharp End, the Fine Line, and Out Alive are podcasts that I'm really listening to right now, because there's stories, like real stories. Like, the last one I just listened to on the way here is a young individual lost a friend because they fell down a mountain face, and their friend died from brain related injury. And I just listened to this story, and I'm actually curious about all the things they don't talk about, the stresses, the rescue efforts, what they did to kill the time. Like, all that stuff is usually left out of the story. But my imagination can imagine what it might be like. And it keeps me motivated to keep packing the right things and to be cautious and remind myself that I'm not 20 anymore, and that injuries take a lot longer to heal. And so I listen to those ones because they don't necessarily have first aid advice, but all of them say, like, you should take a woofer, you should take wilderness first aid, you should always take a first aid kit. So why are we not listening and heeding the advice of people who regretted it? And it just keeps me motivated. So
I like the situational things too, because
Yeah.
it kind of makes me think, like, oh, what would I do, or how would I react in that
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah.
That's what's cool about, like, taking classes with you and, like, other, like, woofers and stuff like that. Like, you get hands-on training, and I'm assuming you probably do this too. Like, you are given, like, a situation, and you have to sort of figure out how you would navigate it with, like, the information and the tools you have.
Yep.
Um,
I think any wilderness first aid provider will give you scenarios that you can, play your way through. Christina, yes, you can. Let me finish my sentence and then you're on board. I believe, I don't care where you are in the world, do not continue to take standard first aid. Take a wilderness first aid, take a 20-hour, take a 40-hour, take an 80-hour. Like, the more you build capacity wherever you are, you will just continue to build your own capacity. You are not, I still take them. So if I still take them, I don't see why people aren't taking them. They're fun. They should be outdoors. It'd be tragic if it wasn't. Come to Saskatchewan. Some of you Americans, you just wait for the border and you come visit me. Okay. But they should motivate you to, I don't know, to have fun with first aid, because in any wilderness first aid course, there's no consequence because someone is not really hurt. And that's what I find fun about the courses. So I encourage you guys to go take a course in your area if you can. Okay, Christina, tell me.
Okay, I left it in the car, but I'll just tell you what it's like.
Tell me.
Okay, and it's not so first aid, but it's more about the cougars. Because bear spray doesn't do much. But it's about this big. It's a little keychain, that hangs. I put it right on the arm of my pack, and it's got a pin in it. And you pull the pin out and lets this really high frequency noise. And wild animals don't like that. The cougars don't like that. They say like with a bear, you got your bear spray and you kind of should have time to grab it. But with a cougar, half the time you don't know there's a problem until it's on you. And it was $3.99 at Princess Auto, which might be just a Canadian store, but it's just really cheap. And it was this guy that does wilderness and cougar and bear stuff, and he doesn't leave the house without it because it's just enough to make them want to run the other way. So,
Have you tried it at a dog park?
that seems mean.
Well, don't rely on something you haven't tried. That would be my advice to you. So you go to the dog park and you stand around a bunch of dogs and they'll be fine. And if they don't run, then you're going to find out whether you trust that advice or not.
Okay, I will do that.
Right? And then you just casually walk by, like people will be like, I don't know what's wrong with those dogs. You know, like there's gimmicky things out there, but there's constant technology that's always going to be evolving, right? But even my own advice, don't take my advice unless you go try it.
Yeah.
Go play with the fence advantage. Go play with a tourniquet. Like you have to try your gear before you trust it. And I appreciate that there might be things that might annoy animals to deter them, but in a predatory attack, bear spray will be your best defense.
His thing was just that if the cougar's already on you, they usually come from behind. You don't necessarily know. That was the thing. And he's an outdoor wilderness person. So it's something I got for, actually, I bought 3 of them. I bought them for all my hikers.
So,
but I will go to the dog park.
Hold on. My screen went blank because my computer died. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hold on. Lindsay, can you hear me?
You're back. Yep.
Okay. My computer died.
We can hear you, but you're frozen. Your picture's frozen.
Okay, hold on. Well, I'm just on my phone. So my phone is still running, but now my computer is dead. And that might awkwardly end the night.
Yeah, I was going to say we could probably wrap up there so you have phone charger. Or a phone charge.
Jeez. Of course, right? There's that better?
Yeah.
Bye. So here's my advice. Like I think what we'll do is, I think anything you take away from this is that I love when I'm given an idea. Right now I'm like, I'm gonna go check out what this thing is at Princess Auto, right? And I'm gonna check it out. And but I'm gonna add it to, maybe I'll add it to my kit, right? And especially in predatory country, please don't assume that that's going to be all that's going to help you, though. That bear spray is going to be the only thing that in the end may get in their eyes and get them to leave you. And it's been proven by science. So be cautious with taking on a new tool and leaving what industry standard is. That would be my only caution to you, right? In regards to that. Now, along that line, bear spray, I've added Johnson's baby shampoo to my first aid kit because it's going to suck anyway. But if I can get a little bit of like soap on me that will start to break up the oil and take some of that, especially off my face and off my hands, then I've added that to my hygiene kit. Johnson & Johnson soap and Dawn Original soap are the best soaps that will remove that kind of oil. So there's another one for you.
Cool. That's good. Yeah.
Cool. So Lindsay, I think what are we going to do about this draw?
Oh, yeah. Why don't you pick a number? You can pick 1 through 12. It looks like one we're on here. So 1 through 10. I think a few people have dropped off. So.
Okay. I'm going to go with number 9.
Righty. 1, 2, 3. I counted wrong, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Denise Carson.
Yay.
Go, Denise.
Denise, I first aid supplies and a little kit for you that I will send to you in the mail, but you got to get me your address.
Do you want to have her reach out to you, or I can have her? Okay. So Denise, you can message Rebecca on Facebook.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Or if you can't find her, you can
Here, I'll put my email in the chat.
Perfect. Yeah. And then that way everybody else has it too in case they have questions. And again, it's just Back40 wilderness first aid training, right? Or is it wilderness?
Oh boy, my fingers and my thumbs here.
It's back40training@gmail.com, right?
Yep.
Yep. So you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Rebecca there. You can go to our website at back40training.com. You can find her on Facebook, Instagram, a YouTube. I didn't know you had a YouTube channel, so now I'm definitely checking this out.
I kind of like in COVID pandemic, and then I haven't done anything since. But my videos were pretty funny back then.
I'm excited to watch them because I will thoroughly enjoy them, I'm sure.
There's one that I took a crack at, like all the junk you find in first aid kits.
Nice.
It was a little sarcastic.
That'll be my favorite, I bet. This has been awesome, Rebecca. You are always like so much knowledge to share, and I just really appreciate you taking time to share it with us and the community and stuff. It's just so thanks so much. And
well, thank you all ladies who are still left here. Thank you for coming online. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And otherwise, send me any pictures if you fix your kid up. Send me a follow-up picture. I love to see that. So, and a safe and fun and adventurous summer.